Okay, so I think we'll start. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Dear brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Sarah and I'm part of BIMA's professional development team, and I'm really excited to welcome you all today to this unique webinar on productivity for busy healthcare professionals. Just before we begin our main talk, and just while people are still logging in, I'd like to give a brief overview of BIMA and the fantastic work that it does. So BIMA is a not-for-profit organisation that was founded in 2013 to support healthcare professionals and the wider community with a vision to unite, inspire and serve. It is the only organisation in the UK to unite Muslim healthcare professionals from all disciplines, be it pharmacists, doctors, dentists, physiotherapists, nurses, etc., and across all levels, from students through to consultants and retired professionals. These are some of the fantastic projects and teams that we have going, and these are delivered by over 1,000 volunteers who work tirelessly around the year to provide these fantastic events. One of our flagship projects is the BIMA Lifesavers course, which is run annually in September, and this involves volunteers from across the UK teaching basic life support skills to local communities through their local mosques. It has been a resounding success and has been taken internationally across 9 countries by our partner organisation, the Federation of Islamic Medical Associations. On the right here, you can see our health promotions team being given an award for the outstanding success that they have had with their cervical screening campaign. Another huge milestone for BIMA was creating this peer-reviewed document by over 60 experts that brought together evidence-based advice regarding fasting for those with various medical conditions. And alhamdulillah, this document has been utilised globally. On this slide, you can see some of the webinars that our professional development team have delivered in the past, and most of these webinars have been recorded and are available to view on our YouTube channel, British IMA. So, of course, I couldn't discuss the work that BIMA has done without speaking about our response to the COVID crisis, as this is probably the thing that's affected us the most in the past year. BIMA has worked tirelessly to bring evidence-based guidance in relation to coronavirus. We produced a webinar called COVID Question Time with various experts, including virologists, alongside weekly community webinars and debriefs for our members working on the front line. We also worked closely with the media and local communities to offer clear guidance on ethical issues relating to closing of masajid and burials during the pandemic. Part of our response has been to deliver information and webinars regarding the COVID vaccination, again by consulting with experts in the field. And these are just some of the infographics that we have on our social media regarding Mythbusters for COVID. And we've also delivered a lot of information regarding other vaccinations during the COVID crisis. So if you would like any more information on the projects that we have done, or if you would like to become a member or a volunteer, please do feel free to contact us on the email provided. And if you connect with us on social media, you can also see a lot of information about our past and upcoming campaigns. So just quickly before we get started, a quick note to say that our webinars are designed to give information that's accurate at the time of presentation. And the views and opinions expressed in this webinar are of the individual speakers and may not necessarily represent the views of BIMA. So before we launch into our talk, just a quick note that this webinar is being recorded and you'll be able to access the recording on our YouTube channel. There will be an opportunity for question and answers at the end, and we encourage you to post your questions in the question box just on the side of the screen. We'll get through as many questions as we can in the time we have provided. As usual, we really value your feedback so that we can continue to deliver these webinars, and we will post the link to the feedback form at the end of the webinar, and would really appreciate if you could complete that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. So Brother Mohammed Fares is the founder of the Productive Muslim Company and the author of the best-selling book, The Productive Muslim, Where Faith Meets Productivity. He has delivered seminars and workshops in over 15 countries and has featured on international media and the TED stage. He regularly speaks at major Islamic organizations, at Fortune 500 companies, including Google, American Airlines, amongst other organizations. Brother Mohammed holds a master's degree from the University of Texas at Dallas on leadership and organizational development, as well as a master's degree from the University of Bristol on finance and investment. So without further ado, I'd love to invite Brother Mohammed to the stage.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me. Jazakumullah khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all, and thank you all for inviting me to this webinar, and it's an honor for me to talk to you all, the heroes of the COVID response. I mean, honestly, I feel like talk about Barakah and what the work you're doing is Barakah itself. So first of all, on behalf of, I guess, every private citizen in the world, Jazakumullah khair for the work you do. May Allah put barakah in your time. I mean, I have friends who are doctors, and this has been a tough year for all of you. And to really want to acknowledge how much you've put into this. I want to start off with a video just to explain, just to give you a brief about who we are, and then we'll go straight into the presentation. Bismillah.
Every day when we wake up in the morning, we make decisions. We decide whether we get up and be the best version of ourselves or not. We go through life following decisions out of habit and routine. Rarely do we stop and question these decisions and the impact they have not only on who we are, but who we'll be. And sometimes we know intellectually that we should change our decisions. We know that we should choose better and live better. But there seems to be a barrier, a gap that keeps growing every single day. And this, in the long run, affects everything, especially things that we cherish the most: our family, our health, our relationship to God. But there comes a moment when you have to say enough is enough.
Modern productivity is about maximizing your output, but Barakah is about maximizing the impact of your output. It's about long-lasting impact that truly brings benefit to yourself and those around you and society at large.
When you decide that it's time to be different, to pick yourself up and be the best version of yourself. Because what's the alternative? A life of regret? This is not only about having good intentions. It's about having good intentions and working hard, about having the discipline to stick with what matters and what works, putting in the hours, pushing yourself even when you don't feel like it. It's about learning about who you are and deciding who you want to be, spiritually, physically, socially. That's how you become the best version of yourself every single day.
All right, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. And thank you again for joining us on this topic webinar on Barakah Culture versus Hustle Culture, how to win more days without losing your soul, or a unique productivity webinar for our busy healthcare professionals, inshallah. My intention for this webinar is to give you a different perspective on productivity, a faith-based and scientifically backed way of thinking about productivity and what it means to be productive for what we call a Barakah Culture perspective, inshallah. I want to start off with a story. In 1976, there was a man named as Shakur Abu Ghazala, and he had a dream. He wanted to bring high-quality fried chicken to the city of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. So he went to Italy, got some recipes of fried chicken, got the machines, came to Jeddah and started this roast restaurant. Unfortunately for him, he didn't live long. After 2 years after opening the restaurant, at a very young age, he passed away. And his sons took over the business, and this business was doing really poorly. In fact, it was losing money, and it was since it opened, and it was just not successful. His sons took over the business, and within a few years, they turned this restaurant to one of the most popular fried chicken businesses in the world. Especially if you go to Hajj or Umrah, and that is Al Baik. If you've gone to Hajj or Umrah, you probably recognize this logo. You know, the joke is you go to Mecca saying Al Baik, Allahumma Al Baik, you come back saying Al Baik, Al Baik, Al Baik. And please type in the chat if you've been to Al Baik. I'd love to see if some of you remember what was your favorite. Is it spicy chicken? Is it spicy fish? Which one it is? It is. But it's interesting how a brand that was a restaurant that just basically was pretty much dying and no one thought this would go anywhere became this almost a thing that people really get excited about. And one of the stories of the founder of Al Baik, Shakur Ghazala, is that when he first opened his restaurant, he made an intention. He said that for every fried chicken that I sell from this restaurant, I will give 1 riyal in charity. Now think about that. You open a restaurant, you open a business, if you bring any management consultant, right, to your business, or if you have a restaurant or a clinic or something like that, and you say, I'm gonna give charity from every fried chicken that I sell. And the fact is he was losing money in the first 2 years, so it didn't make sense. It's not like he was giving out of his profit, he was giving out of his revenues, losing money, but he still kept on giving charity. And the reason for this is because Shakur Ghazala wanted to take to something beyond sort of the numbers, wanted to tap into his idea of barakah. I've been obsessed with this concept of barakah for the past almost 13 years now. And the reason why I was obsessed about it is because I always wanted to answer this question: what is the link between spirituality and peak performance? You know, I'm fascinated by this topic of human performance, human potential, peak, you know, how do you manage your energy, your focus and time to be the best version of yourself? And the intersection of spirituality, intersection with our faith, intersection with how we think about our mindsets, our values, our rituals. And the point when these two intersect, how can they help not only individuals, but as well as teams come together to really become the best version of themselves? And that's the question that's been driving my work since 2007, when I started in the UK, in Bristol, when I was doing my master's in Bristol University in that time, inshallah. So normally when it comes to peak performance science, a lot of it talks about how do you hack your brain, right? You probably hear things like, you know, coffee and sort of, you know, if we've got to use some kind of pill, something like that. Some kind of way to hack your brain, to maximize the potential of your brain. Nutrition, talk about health, nutrition as well is a big factor when it comes to performance. But also a lot of time talks about also the environment, right? Either your social environment, also your physical environment, right? You probably notice I'm standing, right? I like to work standing versus sitting, for example, because that helps me become more productive, helps me to bring more energy, for example. So those are great, these are useful. There's amazing research over the last years on how to improve human performance. And every day we're discovering more research from neuroscience, from biology, from psychology, on how to hack into human motivation, how to get the most out of human being. However, I always kept asking the same question: what about the productivity of the soul? Where is the soul in this whole research about peak performance? And you know, you probably know this by now. A lot of work has been done on the physical aspect of the human being, on the body, on the brain, on the psychology of the human being, the mental aspect of the human being. But the spiritual side is like seen as this fuzzy thing that we're not sure how to tap into, so let's just ignore it completely. And the work we do at Productive Muslim Company is to really go there and kind of like go into spirituality and faith. Say, well, what is the link between spirituality and faith and peak performance? And when I first started this work, and this is where towards the end of 2007, when I started doing, 2008, when I started doing the work blog on Productive Muslim, one thing that I've learned, I came across this hadith which really just blew my mind. It's a hadith by Sakhr al-Ghamidi, a companion of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam once narrated, said, "Oh Allah, bless my nation, or put barakah in my nation. Allahumma barik li ummati fi bukuriha. Oh Allah, put barakah for my nation in their early mornings." Now, this hadith kind of gave us the aha moment for me, because there's two parts of this. Number one, at that time, I was researching all these productivity books, and every productivity book, I'm sure you've come across all of this, saying, wake up early, wake up early, wake up early. There's something special about the early hours. We're not sure what it is, but just wake up early and you'll be more productive, right? And here was the answer, the idea that there's barakah in the early hours, and we're tapping those barakah hours to help us achieve more with less. But what's more interesting was the narrator himself, Sakhar. As Imam Bukhari mentioned, Sakhar was a man engaged in trade, and he used to send his goods early in the morning, beginning of the day, and he became very wealthy as a result. And for me, the aha moment was, this is a man who was a companion who heard this hadith of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and realized, wait a second, this is a formula for success, and he translated it to his personal and business life, and actually seen the results in this life. And that for me was very powerful. And for me, that led me to years of research, writing the book on how to connect spirituality, the concepts we have in our faith, to peak performance and human potential. And this is where this whole idea of barakah came in. So the first question I had to ask myself was, okay, what is barakah? Like, so what is barakah? Or as my American friends would say, what is barakah stuff, man? This is barakah stuff going on. So what is barakah? And barakah is the attachment of divine goodness to a thing. This is a translation by Imam Raghib Asfahani. He says, it is the attachment of divine goodness to a thing. I was speaking to Dr. Mara Gray, I think last week, and she mentioned in a very sci-fi way. She said, think you have a thing, right? You have a thing. You think could be it your time, your money, your children, your family, your house, your car, your laptop, your smartphone. Think of anything, tangible, intangible. And then this barakah is like this gooey thing that just wraps around it, right? Which makes this thing expand, which makes this thing increase, which makes these things grow in a way that you don't even, almost like you can't see the cause and effect. And as I spoke to Imam Khalid, who is the chaplain at Harvard University, he said barakah is experiential. So you experience barakah. Let me give you an example. I don't know how many of you have, and I'd love to hear you in the chat to make sure that, first of all, the chat works, and make sure that you guys can, confirm this. Have you ever invited people over to your house, all right? And you prepared a meal. Let's say you had 5 people coming over. So you prepared a meal for 5 people plus yourselves. And then they decided to bring their friends and their family, and suddenly like 10 people show up, right? And of course, when 10 people show up, you freak out and panic, like, uh-oh, there isn't enough food for everybody. But somehow, by the end of the night, you're surprised to notice not only is enough food, but there's leftover. How many have experienced that? I want to see talk in the chat. How many experienced that where you start to see, where you basically had some food, like, wait a second, where did this, like, it doesn't make logical sense. I thought this won't be enough. Love you to type in the chat if you want to confirm that you've experienced that. And I don't know, maybe it's been a while since you invited people over, but I hope some of you might just relate to it, inshallah. I'll double check, is the chat working, just to make sure, because I don't see any. I want to confirm the chat is working.
Hi, brother. All the chat is coming to the question box.
Oh, okay, there we go. That's why I was wondering where it is. Okay. Oh, yes, there we go. Awesome, awesome. So you say yes, Sauda saying yes. My mom points out all the time. Nadia said yes. Maro said yes. Me definitely. Awesome. Great. Awesome. So I just say you guys just in the question. Great. So and this idea of barakah is something it's experiential. And the question is, a lot of it we kind of leave it to like, okay, well, what is this barakah? How do I tap into it? So the first thing I want to talk about is how do you even measure barakah? Like, is my barakah measurable? One thing you need to know that barakah is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a gift Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts in something, right? And it is from him, and he puts it into a thing. Could be anything, right? Like I said, it could be your time, could be your sleep, could be your money, could be your children, could be your spouse, could be anything. And you notice some things with this. When Allah puts barakah into something, you notice a few things. Number one, you see an increase. You see some kind of increase or growth, right? So this is the normal way of understanding barakah, right? It's like, oh, mashallah, this person has a lot of barakah, right? The business expanded, or the clinic expanded, or mashallah, they have lots of children, or they have a bigger house, a bigger car. We think of increase and growth, but there's a slight catch here. It's not any increase or growth. It is increase and growth that brings you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see, if you have increase and growth that distracts you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, increase in growth that makes you more arrogant, who turns you away from Allah, that's not barakah. That's called istidraj. Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open the doors for you, open doors of rizq and sustenance and growth and increase, and then it might backfire on you, realize, oh, and this is the example of Fir'aun and Qarun in the Quran. Allah gave him everything, right? He gave him all the money, all the wealth, but that distracted them. They turned away from Allah. They became more arrogant, and that was not barakah. That came as actually further punishment for them. Versus here, I'm talking about increase in growth that humbles you, increase in growth that makes you more closer to Allah, increase in growth that makes you give more charity and do more good. If you see increase in growth and you're giving and you see, that is called barakah, inshallah. So I hope that part definition is clear, inshallah. The second way to measure barakah is that not all barakah is increase in growth. Sometimes barakah is simply continuity, right? The fact that you continuously do something. For example, I grew up in an area where in the local masjid, there was 4 neighbors. And these 4 neighbors, every day after Fajr, they'll spend 5-10 minutes reading a tafsir of the Quran. That's it. And this has been going for years, I think 15, 20 years minimum. Now, for them, we didn't like grow into this like massive halaqah with like institution, all that stuff. It was just continuity, right? The fact that it just continued, it hasn't stopped. That is also a form of barakah. So I want to make sure that, yes, not all barakah is growth and increase and having more people and all that stuff. Sometimes the fact that something continues, and especially if it continues after you die, like sadaqah jariyah, that is a form of barakah. Like till today, there are awqaf, there are waqf projects, trust projects, there are, charity projects that have been going on for years, and that is barakah itself. Having grown, having increased, but the fact that it continued is a way to measure barakah as well. Another way for measuring barakah is stability. Right now we're being through a lot of us go through a COVID situation, and it was tough. And if just having some form of stability in your health, stability in your wealth, stability in your family, stability in your life, right? That stability, especially we live in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and last year was a great example of that. But if you have some kind of stability, some kind of anchoring, where you don't feel like you're just like floating around, or you feel like if you feel anchored, whether anchored in your faith or anchored in your conviction, or anchored in your relationships, or anchored in financial, all of that anchoring, that is also a form of barakah, right? The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you stability. So growth, continued stability. These are some examples. Of course, there are many ways. And one thing about barakah is that because it's a matter of the divine, we can't really wrap our head around it. It's like there's all we can do is develop a web of meaning around it and try to kind of, based on experiences, based on anecdotes, put some pieces together. But I hope this gives you a clue into how to start thinking about barakah beyond just the growth and increase, inshallah. I want to pause here and ask you to do something very small for me. I'd like you to spend just 30 seconds writing down where in your life do you find barakah, and feel free to type in the chat. Where in your life do you find barakah? Where have you experienced barakah? It could be something very small. It could be, hey, last night's meal, I was so hungry, I had this full sandwich, but I saw someone who was more hungry and I gave it half and I felt full. That's barakah. Or something grand, like, for example, mashallah, the BIMA organization seems to be full of barakah, alhamdulillah. So where do you see barakah in your life? So you can just type that in the chat to kind of get an idea of measuring, because a lot of us, sometimes we complain saying, oh, I don't have barakah in my time, I have barakah in my money, but maybe there's barakah in some other parts of your life. So where do you see barakah? I'd love for you to type in, inshallah, in your life, inshallah. Right. I'm seeing the question and answer box, so just making sure. Having good health, Su'ad, thank you so much for sharing that. The BIMA dress code, the Dreamer dress code project, Emma is a great one. Yes, so sometimes you just seeing a project that you didn't expect it to grow, and you think, whoa, like such huge adoption and success beyond expectations. That is also a form of barakah. Thank you for sharing that. Close relationship with your husband, siblings, Amina, family, meeting good people. Yes. Oh wow, there you go. So this, they have childcare, so do webinars for small speaking individuals. Yes. Seeing your kids' studies, work, project involved in, opportunity in work. Great, I love that. So you start to see these, and this is what we want to start developing, what I call spiritual intelligence. A lot of us, we are so sort of, in this world, kind of like wrapped around in this material world, that we don't see the spiritual realities behind something. For example, something like your smartphone, right? Does this bring you barakah in a sense you can do good projects, do good work with it, or is it a distraction, right? Most of it's like half-half, depending what you do with it. But think about when we start seeing the spiritual reality behind things. And this is where I want you to start nurturing our spiritual intelligence and going beyond just the kind of like the physical aspect of things like that. Now, why is this important? And why do I talk about this? The reason why I talk about this is because right now in the world, and actually I want to start, I'm going to ask the BIMA team to put in the link to a video that I would like you to watch after this webinar. I won't do it now because it won't of the time, but there's a link that inshallah you receive, talk about how basically we live in a world with a narrative now that in order to be successful, you got to go all out and hustle. You got to hustle, 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 what I call hustle culture. In fact, the co-founder of Reddit wrote a scathing article saying that we live in excuse the language, hustle porn, right? We feel obsessed about hustling and, oh, I wake up 4 in the morning to go to the gym and do this, and I knock my emails 5 in the morning and I do this, especially in the US example, right? We have this whole hustle culture approach. And so that is the motive, that is the definition of success. That is how you should be succeeding in life. And if you're not hustling, then you're not productive. Right? If you're not hustling, then you can't live the best version of yourself. And thank you for sharing, Marwa, the link. Again, please check it after. It's a great video by The Atlantic, which wrote how workism, which another way of hustle culture, workism, is destroying our lives, and how we made work the main purpose of our lives and our identity in life. And so the question is, well, what's the alternative, right? Because most of us grew up, think about it, most of us grew up with the narrative that in order to be successful, you gotta hustle, and also that work is your primary identity. The first question someone asks you when you meet someone is, hey, how are you, what's your name? And the second question is, what do you do, right? That is the first thing people ask, what do you do? And we've developed our identity around our professions. We've developed our identity about what we do with our time. Busyness, being busy, is seen as a badge of honor, right? Oh, I'm busy. If you say, hey, how's life? Oh, busy, man, so busy, right? That's the standard response. And there's some interesting articles about, and now it's like, it's very ahistorical time we live in right now. The idea of being always busy and seeing busy as a badge of honor. In fact, one of the interesting things that are happening now is that rich people, usually in the past, rich people didn't used to work, but now rich people actually working harder and more than other people, because again, it's not because of the money, it's because the identity is attached to it. So the question is, what's the alternative, right? What's the alternative? The alternative is to live the idea we call Barakah Culture. Now, when I share this, sometimes I do this in front of CEOs. I've done this in American Airlines and Google, and some of the HR freak out, like, wait a second, are you saying that our workers, employees should not work hard? Like, no. Both hustle culture and both Barakah culture, yes, there's hard work in both, but it's the why and it's the how, right? And this is what we're going to talk about, go in more detail, Shatana. So let's first talk about the definition of productivity from a standard kind of productivity science perspective. We talk about productivity is how you manage your energy, your focus, and your time. Right? Whoops, sorry. How you focus your energy, focus, and time. Right? So if you are struggling to be productive, for example, a lot of it comes down to these three things. What is it that you're struggling with? You have low energy, maybe you're tired, you haven't slept well, you haven't had breakfast, you haven't eaten anything, or you're eating junk food, or something to do with energy. Or is it your focus that's going out of the way? You're distracted, your phone, all sorts of things. You're distracted with work, distracted with family, or something internal distraction, negative thoughts, emotions. Or is it about your time, right? Organizing your time in a way that helps you become productive. So if you have energy, focus, and time, now I have to put a caveat here, is towards a beneficial output, because what normally happens is, for example, I'm an ex-gamer, and shout out all the gamers in the room. I used to play 13 hours straight, right? Metal Gear Solid, FIFA, all that stuff. And think about it. I had energy, I had focus, and boy, did I have time. But was that really productive? I'm not sure. Again, it depends who you ask, but I don't think so. It wasn't anything beneficial. Yes, it felt good, I admit it, but it wasn't towards a beneficial output, right? And that's how you know something is productive or not productive. So this is a good equation that if you're struggling with productivity in general, is a good starting point for you to start asking yourself, what am I struggling with? If I'm feeling lazy, if I'm procrastinating, if I'm feeling lethargic, what am I struggling with? Energy, focus, and time. But what I wanted you to add to this equation, this is the point of this presentation, is what I call the missing soul of productivity, and I call the beta factor or the Barakah factor. And I know for mathematicians in the room, you might think, wait a second, this equation is wrong. What I'm trying to say here is this: if you want to track Barakah in your energy, and Barakah in your focus, and Barakah in your time, we'll talk about how in a minute. What you'll start noticing results and output beyond expectation. Now I know it should be beta power of 3, but I'm saying is the output, the impact is beyond expectation. Let me give you examples. Imagine that you're an author, right? And this is something I can relate to. You spend energy, focus, and time writing a book, right? So you put energy, you put focus, you put time, you write it, and the output is you have a book. And normally, if you ever talk to authors, they'll tell you if you sell 3,000 copies per year, that's considered pretty good. And if you hit the New York bestsellers, awesome, that's amazing. But if you look at the historical example, if you look at some of the Islamic scholars in the past, in some golden age Islamic civilization, you notice something different. Not only were they putting energy, focus, and time, so they're working hard, they were hustling in that sense, but they were attracting barakah in their energy. Things like they would fast when they would approach their work. They would attract barakah in their focus, meaning, for example, while they're working, they're facing Mecca, they're facing the Qibla. They'll attract barakah in their time. They will spend time in prayer. They'll give in charity. They'll attract barakah. They'll adopt certain mindsets, certain values, certain rituals, which we'll talk about in a minute, inshallah, to almost like bring the spiritual side to their work, right? Almost like how to enhance. It's not just about the doing part. It's kind of like the being part, right? How they approach their life on a very spiritual perspective, from the energy, the focus, the time, not just as much as like getting things done. It's about the intentions. It's about being hereafter focused. It's about the rituals, the prayers and recitations and charity and the fasting. And then we see something that's just mind-boggling. Number one, we see the output they produce. A lot of them were prolific, right? There's Imam Nawawi, for example. Someone said to me something that if you divide the number of pages Imam Nawawi wrote in his lifetime by the number of days he had in his life, because he only lived like till 40-something years old, you'd say that means he probably wrote at least 150 pages a day, which is, I mean, like, if I get the emoji of mind-blowing, that's the emoji for mind-blowing. Like, what? 100? I can barely write like a paragraph a day, and I'm like, I'm done for the day. Like, what is that, right? What is that output that was just, one thing is the prolific nature of the output, but there's another thing that's very powerful, is how their work till today is impactful. If you read the books of Imam al-Ghazali, for example, very famous Islamic theologian, right, the philosopher and psychologist, like, you read these books and the impact it has on our community until today, people are studying it and researching it and learning about it, is beyond expectation. And that is the main difference between Barakah culture and hustle culture. Hustle culture is like getting things done, right? Maximizing output. Let's get things done, move it forward, get this output, which is good. Again, nothing wrong with it. But I feel like we're missing the soul of productivity. And the soul of productivity is about impact, the why, the intention behind something, and making something and making it going beyond. It's not about you, inshallah. It's going beyond, inshallah, that so of you, inshallah. Does this make sense? I want to make sure I pause here, make sure this makes sense before. This makes sense. The idea of attracting barakah, fusing spirituality, bringing those mind. We'll talk more in detail about in a minute, but I just want to make sure that at this point, does this make sense? I haven't confused you all the equations here so far. Are we good, inshallah? Just type, let me know yes or no. Yes, awesome, Sumaya. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So I want to share a few key ways that Barakah culture is different from hustle culture. Number one, Barakah culture, I like to give it the analogy of the gardener. And hustle culture is like a carpenter. So think about carpenter. Carpenter would say, okay, I want to produce a chair, right? So I have a fixed image of what the chair should look like, and I will build that chair. And if the chair does not come out how I have it in mind, I get really annoyed, get really upset, and I break my own tools and blame my tools, and I maybe give up carpentry. Hustle culture, so that's hustle culture, is very fixed in its output. There's a specific output in its mind. Barakah culture, we call it more intention driven. What they say is, you know what? It's called gardener mindset, and maybe the team can look up an article on how to set goals like a gardener, where you focus on your intention, you focus on planting the right seeds, and you focus on nurturing that intention. You put in the hard work, you do the hours, you do what you can, you put the right values into it, but you can't guarantee the fruits. You can't guarantee it. You know, for those of you who are parents, you probably know this, right? You have children, you put a lot of effort and all that stuff, but you can't guarantee the fruits. And we see this in historical terms. If you read the books of if you read the Quran, for example, it talks about prophets, right? Like Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, Prophet Noah, Prophet Nuh, who called his people for so many years. And, you know, but in the end, only few people believed in him, right? And if you think about it from a hustle culture perspective, if you were to look at results and output, yeah, and then, you know, you say, oh, you didn't achieve success. You are quote unquote a failure because you didn't achieve the success you set out to achieve. Again, carpenter, you had to achieve a certain thing in your mind. But in Islamic psychology or Islamic spirituality, it is success. The Prophet are successful because why? They put in the intention, put the hard work. The fruits that are up to them. In fact, Prophet Noah, his own son did not believe in him, which, you know, again for parents sometimes can be like, oh God, you know, like, you know, your own son does not believe in your message, does not believe in your values. But that was beyond him. That was like, you've done your part. You've worked hard. You've set the intentions. The fruit, the output is not at your heart. And this is a hard pill to swallow because a lot of us, we grew up with this idea that hustling and output, we are linked. We have to get to the results we want because we put in the hard work. And if we don't get the results we want, then we are the failure, right? We are the losers. Versus think as a gardener saying, okay, I put the right intent, I put the right seeds in, I worked hard, and let's say the fruits do not come as perfect, or there's a, you know, weather change or some kind of pest. Do I blame myself, or do I say, you know what, you know, I've done my part. I'm not attached to the output. I'm not attached to results. I'm focused on the process. I'm focused on the process of achievement versus focusing on the achievement itself. This is an important distinction between Barakah culture and hustle culture. And there's a verse in the Quran that really stops me whenever I read this. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أَفَرَأَيْتُم مَا تَحْرُثُونَ أَأَنْتُمْ تَزْرَعُونَهُ نَحْنُ الزَّارِعُونَ. Have you seen that seed which you sowed? You put in the seed. You worked hard. Allah is asking a question. Is it you who makes it grow, or are we the grower? And you're like, right? It's like, you know, of course, Allah is the grower. He made the plant grow. Like when you see, if you're a gardener, some of your gardeners, and you see the beautiful plants, how Allah nurtures them, you see this beautiful, like, wow, like, you know that, yes, you put in the effort, yes, you put the seed, you put the water, you took the asbab, you did all you had to do to make sure it nurtures beautifully, but the results is not up to you. And I think this is a fundamental shift we have to make when we move from hustle culture to Barakah culture. And again, modern day productivity is all about the good results, the output, right? Results, you know, results-based framework, results-driven, output-driven, versus saying, how if you go intentions-driven? And again, I'm being conscious. I know that when I talk to CEOs and HR, like, oh man, you're talking like, oh yeah, I have good intentions, but I don't work hard. No, good intentions means you work hard. Good intentions means you put in the effort. Good intention means you do everything you can. And there's an equation here that I like to share that explains this pretty well. You know, as Muslims, at least, the way we approach our, you know, how we understand this idea of how we relate to output is that, number one, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us free will. We have free will to choose, to make decisions, to decide how to approach things, to plan. We also know that there's natural laws. There's natural laws of how things work in this universe. For example, you know that if you sleep late, you wake up late because the body cannot wake up early if you haven't slept the whole night, for example. We also know that nothing happens without Allah's permission, right? So let me give you examples. This will make this very clear. Think of, for example, like I said, you want to wake up early morning, okay? So free will, you say, you know what, tomorrow I will wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You put your free will, you put the intention, you said, great, this is my free will. Natural laws, you sleep 3 o'clock in the morning, all right? So it's less likely, not saying impossible, but less likely, that you sleep 3 o'clock in the morning to wake up at 5. But then, for some unknown reason, you sleep a couple hours and you wake up, right? It's almost like, it didn't make sense, but you woke up and you were able to get up and say pray, or get up and go to, you know, and do what you need to do. So this idea of free will, natural, Allah's permission is very, very powerful. Think of, you know, in terms of your, you starting a business, or you're raising children, or think of any context. The free will part is you, the thinking, the planning, the disciplining, and the taking action. The natural law is saying, how do I align myself? For example, if you're trying to start a business, well, you got to learn about marketing and sales and accounting, all that stuff. You got to learn how things work. You got to learn about psychology and how to reach out to your customers. If you're trying to lose weight, there's certain, you got to align yourself with natural laws. If you're trying to improve your health, if you're trying to protect yourself from COVID, right? There are all these, there's free will and there's natural laws, right? This is actually an interesting debate about COVID, and especially in the Muslim community, right? People say, oh, it doesn't matter, just open the massages and just no social distancing, let's just experience, let's just, Allah will protect us, right? That's actually not a prophetic way of thinking about things. Again, we're told that you have thinking, you have discipline, you have to think through, you have to align yourself with natural laws, protect yourself, wear a mask, double mask if you have to, protect yourself, and also seek God's permission. Ask, make dua. Dua is, supplicate, ask Allah, seek God's permission, right? And I think sometimes, again, in the hustle culture world, we focus on the first two, free will, natural laws. A lot of us are really good at that. We don't seek His permission. And I like the word permission because it puts us into the context. Again, as Muslims, we believe that the purpose of life is for us to worship Allah. And to worship means you are His slave, you belong to Him. And you think of a slave-master relationship, right? A slave doesn't do what they want. A slave always asks his Lord, right? Allah, can you allow me to do this? I want to wake up in the morning. I want to start this business. I want to, get married. I want to focus on, I want to raise my kids this way. And you start seeking permission. And there's a beautiful saying that sometimes Ibn Qayyim talks about that your prayers will go up, your dua goes up, and destiny comes down. So sometimes Allah will decree for you, for example, let's say, I don't know, God forbid, to fail that exam, or if something happens to one or few of your children, God forbid, but you make dua, you seek Allah's, you seek Allah's protection, or you make dua, and say that the dua, the prayer, the supplication, and the God's permission and the decree are come down, and they fight between the heavens and the earth, right? It's like almost have a little fight. Whichever is stronger kind of sort of wins. If Allah's decree comes down and your dua is not very weak, then that decree comes down. If your dua is very strong, you might push back that decree. Something like giving in charity, for example, pushes back sometimes some of the sadaqah, which can be very, very, push back some of the musibah, some of the challenges you face in life. So idea of free will, natural law, Allah's mission. And here's the kick. The outcome is not up to you. If you've taken the free will, you did everything you possibly can, you align with natural laws, you studied, you learned, you did everything you can, and, this is the key word, and you sought Allah's permission, you prayed, you did everything you can, and you got to an outcome, right? But the outcome was not as expected. We have two conditions, shukr and sabr. Shukr means to gratitude. If things are as expected or better than expected, alhamdulillah, we are thankful. If things are not as expected, things didn't go how we wanted to go, we have sabr, the idea of patient perseverance. Not patient, not like, okay, fine, I guess it's not meant for me to do this and I'll just give up. No, it's patiently persevering, meaning once you see the outcome, you come back to this equation, start again. Let's say you failed, your business failed. Let's say your kid is not listening to you. Let's say your health is not doing well. Your outcome, you say, come back, okay, what else can I do? What are free will? What are the natural laws? What is seeking permission? This is a continuous loop equation, not like a one-way street. It's a continuous loop. And the more we focus on the first three parts, that is Barakah culture. Again, hustle culture, focus on free will, natural laws, and ignore and then attach the outcome. I have to achieve the outcome, right? No matter what happens. And sometimes Allah allows the outcome to happen. Sometimes Allah does not allow the outcome to happen. But Barakah culture says, free will, natural, Allah's mission, you have to combine all three, but don't be attached to the outcome. Does this make sense? This is a very critical concept to understand and to make the most out of it. Okay. Yes, so again, I love this study. As Shahnaz saying that a lot of times talk about the results, very results-driven. Failures mocked and ridiculed and leading to self-esteem issues. Yes, absolutely. And the idea, but here's a model of success where you're saying, think of Prophet like Nuh alayhi salam, right? Who, if again, from a hustle culture perspective, quote unquote, like, oh, he's a failure, but he's not, right? He's one of the most successful prophets, basically. But this is critical to understand. The idea that there is a formula we need to follow, and it's not a lazy formula. People think, oh, Barakah Culture is Barakah, man, chill out, relax. No, you gotta put the free will, gotta put the hard work, but you also gotta, as if nothing, almost like, the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, this is how he approached his life. You've noticed him. He would do all he had to do. For example, we talk about his migration or any of his battles, for example, he'll do all he has to do, but then he would seek God's permission as if he has not prepared anything. And that's exactly the Barakah mindset that we want to adopt, inshallah. Okay. Does it make sense? Not the akhir part, Fahim. No, that's not the attached. That's the results, right? Not just the results. And we'll talk about, akhir dunya in a second, inshallah. All right. I love this quote which I found Imam Ghazali al-Umdin, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to Dawood alayhi salam, Prophet Dawood. He goes, "Oh Dawood, you want and I want. So if you submit to what I want, I'll take care of what you want. If you don't submit to what I want, I will exhaust you in what you want, and then you only get what I want." I'll give you a second, just read this and just internalize it. This for me, just again, a lot of us, I've met people in the hustle culture world. You're so busy, right? That busyness takes them away from Allah Ta'ala. They're in the middle of meet, they'll skip prayers. They will skip doing the right thing. They'll be so driven by hustle culture, and they'll justify, "Oh yeah, I don't have time, I'm too busy." And here Allah Ta'ala is giving the hint saying, you want something and I want something. And if you don't submit to what I want, I will exhaust you. Right, I'll exhaust you. I've spoken to executive people who reach the top of their game, and when they read this, sometimes they cry. It's like, I know exactly what this means. I feel exhausted, and then I only got what I sort of sought versus getting more. Right. So I want us to start thinking perspective of how do I align myself with Barakah culture, and the way to align yourself is to move away from an egocentric approach to productivity. It's about me, myself, and I, to a God-centric approach. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve my Lord, and I'm here to serve the creation of my Lord. As doctors, I mean, you guys, mashallah, like you all in that premium, amazing position where you're in the axis of serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also serving His creation. But how do you move away from an egocentric approach to productivity to a God-centric approach to productivity? How do we move away from, it's about personal success drive, right? About my accolades and awards, to purpose and impact drive. Right, it's about the purpose we do. How do we move away from worldly focus, back to Fahim's question, right? The worldly focus, where it's about, worldly success, to hereafter focused success. And again, I want to be very clear. Sometimes we have this mentality in the Muslim space where, oh, this world is bad and ignore this world and I should just, be in a mosque and not be attached to this world. The Prophet gives a very healthy understanding of how to deal with this world. It is a bridge. It's like an airport you're going through. And there's a beautiful hadith that I love that says, إِذَا قَامَتِ الْقِيَامَةِ وَفِي يَدِ أَحَدِكُمْ فَسِيلَةٌ فَلْيَزْرَعْهَا. If the day of judgment starts, and in the Quranic description, day of judgment is everything's falling apart. The sun and moon are colliding, the stars are collapsing, the seas are exploding, like it is mayhem, right? And the Prophet said, if the day of judgment starts, and in the hands of one of you is a date palm tree, plant it. Now think about it. What is the point of planting a tree when the whole world is collapsing, right? Why Prophet doesn't say go pray or go read Quran, go and plant a tree? Why? Because it's about purpose and impact. Prophet teaches us to have impact at the last minute, have impact in this world. Why? For the sake of hereafter. Have impact in this world because you're seeking God's pleasure. Like planting a tree is something positive, it's something impactful, something that you have good intentions behind. Even if you won't see the results, right? Of course, the day just stops, you won't see the results. But that's the mentality we should have as we move towards Barakah culture. Things like focusing on God acceptance, right? When you do your work, at the end of the work day, you say, oh, Allah, accept this from me, right? When you go to your clinic, go to your doctor, you patient. I know it's tiring. I'm sure all of you are just tired, exhausted from the patients and all that work you do. But instead of looking at material results, how many patients I do today, or even financial results, saying, did God accept this from me today? And maybe you have a question on a post note, Allah, did He accept today from me? If you work with this intention of seeking God's acceptance, gosh, I mean, just think about that, right? Once I was talking to a software engineer, and he goes, Mohammed, I see code. How am I supposed to see God acceptance doing code? And I asked him, which of the 99 names you love the most? He goes, I love the name Al-Jamil. Allah is the most beautiful. I'm like, great. Can you write code seeking, almost like is this thing as beautiful code? He's like, yeah. I'm like, perfect. You can seek God's acceptance doing beautiful code because you know Allah is Jameel, right? For example, all of your doctors, you know, as you say, Allah is Shafi, Allah is one who gives healing. So you are fulfilling and you are seeking God's acceptance by being a conduit to Allah's shifa, Allah's healing to other people. So think about that idea of how do I practice and how do I live up to Allah's 99 names, right? Through my work. And that is Barakah culture. Things, move from being never satisfied to being content, right? Again, not meaning don't be ambitious. You can be as ambitious as you want, but enjoy the ride, be content. We live again, hustle culture is just not content, never satisfied, right? Versus living that contentment. Seeking credit versus being grateful. Grateful to the nurses, grateful to the team, grateful to the people around you, grateful to your family who's supporting you. How can you, be grateful seeking credit? Being distracted, rushed, busy all the time versus focused, tranquil, present, right? Again, hustle culture, again, it kind of made busyness is like the badge of honor. It's like being busy feels good, feels like, oh, I'm needed, I'm productive. But is it really? We rush through our prayers, we rush through our relationships, we rush through life, but being focused, being tranquil, being present. Sense of entitlement, I've noticed a lot in hustle culture. It's like, oh, I worked so hard, I deserve this. A sense of entitlement versus a sense of responsibility. Oh, wow, I'm not a doctor. I have a responsibility to all these people. Like a sense of responsibility versus, oh, I deserve this. I worked hard for this. From big moves, short-termism, as we call it, or to small, consistent, long-term effort. Barakah culture about that small, consistent, long. It's not about the big moves. It's about the small, consistent, long. And this is especially in the startup world. A lot of the hustle culture is kind of like an overdrive mode, but Barakah culture is where it makes sense. This makes sense. Again, I pause here. Make sure that this makes sense. Shahnaz, I'm not sure which one you referred to as Quran quote. I'm not sure which is. If I talk about the palm tree, that's a hadith. The hadith about the palm tree. Okay. All right. I'm gonna move a little bit fast. I know we're supposed to stop top of the hour, but I'll allow some time for questions, inshallah, towards the end. So I presented this topic, Barakah culture, hustle culture, to major organizations, Fortune 500 companies, on how to live Barakah culture. And the question I always get is, okay, seems great. I understand Barakah, this is powerful, but how to make it a reality, right? How to make it a reality. So we've developed a framework at Productive Muslim, which talks about that in order to tap into Barakah culture, we need to tap into certain mindsets, certain values, and certain rituals. And the way we came up with this is because as we came up with this tool, and if you can maybe someone type in the chat, if you go to productiveness.com/Barakah culture cards, these are the cards here. These are 17 mindsets, 17 rituals, 17 values. You can get these cards from our store. And it's a tool to explore Barakah culture. For example, you can talk about the rituals, for example, that making dua is a ritual. Let me see if I can share some with you here so that it becomes even clearer. Things, for example, let's say a value. Let's see here. Let's see if I can share this without messing everything up. All right, let's see. Okay, there we go. Whoopsies, did I miss something? See, this is where you should never change something. Okay, there we go. All right, there we go. I can see me now. Let's say a value is trustworthiness. Whoop, let's see if my phone can focus. No. Come on, there you go. Trustworthiness, right? That's a value, for example. A mindset, for example, could be consistency is a mindset. How do you be more consistent? Come on, camera. Yes, consistency. Sorry, it's flipped around. Maybe you can't read it properly. A ritual, for example, is again, making dua, like, seeking Allah's, making dua, for example. So these are 17 values, mindset, rituals that you can focus on that can just profoundly help you live a Barakah culture, inshallah. So let me switch back my camera before I, let's see. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. There we go. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. I knew it was a risk. All right, there we go. Alhamdulillah, Bismillah. All right, so, and why is it important? Because with mindsets, with values, with ritual, you just understand what are the mindsets, values, ritual, and you can discover this in your own faith. When you read the Quran, you read the prophetic hadith, you find these mindsets, values, rituals. These kind of guide your Barakah culture. These kind of like the tools you use to kind of figure out what the Barakah culture should live up to, inshallah. But there is a catch, and the catch is you need to be sincere about this stuff. You can't be wanting Barakah culture and you're not sincere. And sincerity here means being sincerely doing this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you give charity, you don't give charity saying, oh, I want some Barakah, right? I'm gonna get some charity back, get some ROI in my charity. No, you're giving charity sincerely for Allah. When you're being trustworthy, when you're healing patients, you're being sincere. It's something I learned when I visited Sheikh Abdul bin Bayya in his home in Jeddah a few years ago, and I asked him for advice. And he said, "Ahsin an-niyya wa'amal." Have sincere intentions and work hard. That is the formula for success. Have sincere intentions and work hard. So how do I practically add barakah to my life? I want to share a gift with you all, inshallah. If you go to productivemuslim.com/living with barakah, I'll share 3 things with you. Number 1, the Barakah Culture versus Hustle Culture infographic, which is great to print out and kind of keep yourself focused on living Barakah Culture. A worksheet called 21 Sources of Barakah. So we went through all the verses, not all, well, most of the verses of the Quran and all the hadith we can come across. And we tapped into Sources of Barakah, places in the Quran where Allah Ta'ala and Prophet Muhammad spoke about barakah and how it can bring back, for example, charity, waking up early, umrah, planting trees, all sorts of things that bring barakah in your life. So you can actually find a worksheet for free, as well as 21 days of barakah experiment. So each day for 21 days, we'll send you an email. We'll say today, say Bismillah consciously. Today, connect to your family member. Right? Small experiments that actually bring barakah in your life. So if you would like to do this, just go to Living with Barakah, productivemuslim.com/living with barakah. Again, please type in the chat here. So up to top and set, productivemuslim.com/living with barakah. And you will find that, inshallah, this will be helpful, inshallah, for you. So let us wrap up and then we'll open up Q&A. I know we're just on top of the hour, but I'll be open for you to answer your questions. Shakur Ghazala, at the beginning of the story, I said that he opened this restaurant and he died 2 years later. Never in his wildest dream did he expect to see that Al-Baik will one day be serving millions of Hujjaj, millions of pilgrims on the days of Hajj, fried chicken. And that all started with him saying, I'm going to sincerely give 1 riyal charity for every fried chicken that I sell. And that is an example of barakah beyond our expectation. So that was Shakur Ghazala's story. The question is, what will be your story? What will be your barakah story? The thing that you plant today, this hour, this week in your life, that will continue to grow beyond your death. Where one thing I've learned about barakah, which I've noticed in my own family and my grandparents and people before me, is barakah is almost that you can pass on barakah to your children and pass on barakah to those around you. But you got to start today by having sincere intentions and working hard, inshallah. I hope that we found this useful and beneficial. I would like to invite you all to share the one thing that you'll take away from this workshop before I open up for the Q&A, inshallah. What is the one thing that you can, that will be the aha moment for you to take away from this workshop? And then we open up for Q&A, inshallah. And I'll be here for as long as you want me, inshallah. All right, so again, I'll come to the question in a minute, but I want to share the one thing, inshallah. So having sincerity in making dua, early mornings, focus on effort, intention rather than outcome, importance of seeking Allah's permission, dua, I love that. Okay. Yeah, very good question about that. Yeah, the fried chicken. Again, and that was actually good. We had a great debate about this, like fried chicken. Maybe at that time they didn't have the knowledge, right, compared to how much we know now about fried chicken. But that's a good point, absolutely. Wake up early. Yeah, incur Allah's names in work, sincere intentions, formula outcome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Alrighty. So a quick precursor of Barakah Muslim, like I said, our mission is to spread Barakah culture globally. And we really want to equip professionals like yourselves with practical knowledge, skills, and tools to live the best version of yourselves spiritually, physically, and socially. We work with not only with Muslim organizations, professional, but also faith-based companies or companies that have a faith-based ERG and through associations like BIMA. So it's an honor to work with you all and to promote and help develop this mindset of spirituality, of productivity from a spiritual perspective. We have worked with corporate clients around the world, work with teams, organizations, not just with individuals. We also have, alhamdulillah, a really large following. If you've not checked out buttercup.com, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, please do check it out. We have a lot of resources for people around. We also, this is what we do. We do live masterclasses. We also have our book. You can check out the book. We do live workshops post-COVID. Barakah Academy is our community membership. If you want to live a Barakah culture, it's a great community, and we have a lot of doctors there in that community. We do executive coaching, as well as do retreats, whether personal retreats and corporate retreats once a year, inshallah. So with that, again, I want to open up now for the Q&A. A quick reminder, please go to productums.com/livingwithbarakah to get the your free gifts. And inshallah, I'll start answering your question, inshallah. So there's some questions here coming in. Let's see. How to assess? Okay, do you think Barakah culture explains why people can achieve great things without working continuously, but still have faith in Allah that will give them what is best for them? And see, the thing is, if you think, and this is what the mindset shift needs to happen. If you think that your effort and your knowledge and your skills is what get the results, that is the challenge. And I know you might think, well, isn't it? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to remind us that nothing happens without His permission. When things happen, it's not you. Yes, you put the intention, you worked hard, but the outcome is not just like you say. You can't say I made the tomato, right? You put the seed, you grow the plant, but the tomato is not you. Allah created that tomato, based, because of your effort. But easily that tomato may not come out. And this is a huge challenge because a lot of us we have this thing of, no, it's about the hard work, effort. Again, not to discount the hard work effort, but it's to realize that it's not us. And this is why if you look into the Quran, when Qarun, for example, Qarun was a very wealthy man who was, they're told him, by the way, Allah gave you this. He goes, no, I got myself. I worked hard for this, right? إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي. I've been given the knowledge. It's me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically destroyed him because of his arrogance, not recognizing where the blessing came from. Versus if the Qarnayn, when he built that dam, the first thing he said after building the dam is, هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ رَبِّي. This is a mercy from my Lord. It's not from me. Even though he worked hard building a dam with his people, and he worked so hard and he sweated, because this is a mercy from Allah. It's from Allah, not from me. He gave me the means to make this happen. So I want us to shift gears and really think about that, inshallah. So not attaching, but not means to give up, not means to not work hard, but not attach. When you see results, alhamdulillah, it's not from me. But put in the effort, work hard, but it's not from me, inshallah. All right, great. Next question. How do we assess ourselves in terms of performance, self-improvement, where we don't give importance to outcome? Great question. So I personally, for example, I run a company. So when I work with my team, I look at the process. I look at the, for example, let's say we don't have like sales targets or goals. Like, okay, have we followed the process? Have we done our part in this process? What's missing in the process? Let's say I have a salesperson in my team. Did you call, let's say, 20, 30 people today? Did you email clients today? Did you focus the process? Whether you got the sales or not, I'm not going to judge you on that. I'm going to judge you on, have you followed the process? Is there any way you can improve your script, for example? So it's about thinking about the process versus the output. And by the way, a lot nowadays in HR, they start thinking about it because they realize we live in such an unpredictable world. To hold people accountable to results when it's not in their hands is just not, it's not very practical. Let's see. Okay, how do you convince people that that have the type of mindset that they don't need to work? Yes, that's a great one. This is one of the challenges in our community where there is a mindset of, oh, there's no point to work hard, or this is all dunya is bad. And I think this is actually, I wrote in my book, I wrote that there are 5 misconceptions that are destroying productivity in our ummah. One of them is dunya is all bad. Another one is, oh, have sabr and everything will be fine. Another one is just make dua. Another one is this idea of it's all written. What's the point of me working hard, studying hard? These are misconceptions, and I actually address them in detail in my book of why these are misconceptions that have sipped into our psyche and have destroyed it. But at the same time, I feel like, I'll be honest with you, I feel we are shifting on towards the other end. We're almost like we're now hustling so much that we're actually forgetting the akhir as well. So I want us to make sure that my role is going to be the balance, to play the balance. We're ummatun wasata. We are a middle nation. And part of our middle nation is to seek the means, to work hard, but also not to be attached to this world and to seek the hereafter, inshallah ta'ala. All right, let's see. My journal, inshallah. So I'm planning on, so we have a Barakah journal coming up, inshallah. It is going to be out in Ramadan or right after Ramadan, inshallah. If you go to productivemuslim.com/Barakah journal, you can add your name to the waiting list once it's released. We launched the Launch Good campaign, was successful, but inshallah the journal will come in a few months, inshallah. All right, how to do Barakah? If you go to barakahacademy.com, you can see the link there on the screen. Just go to barakah.com and you'll be able to sign up for Barakah Academy, inshallah. Food that give help. Yes, this is another thing. And maybe back to the question about the fried chicken. The idea of, the idea of eating the halal and tayyib, right? A lot of us focus on halal, right? That's great, but also don't forget the tayyib. Things that are healthy, that are organic, that are locally sourced, things that are in nature. That brings barakah, and we've seen examples in Prophet Muhammad's sayings about how the food you eat can impact your spirituality, right? If you eat haram food or food that's not permissible, your du'as may not be accepted, right? So this idea of the food we eat, and I do a whole session on nutrition and barakah as well, and it's important to seek barakah in the food we eat, how much we eat, the quality we eat. That is also very, very important as well. Any other questions, inshallah?
I think there were a couple more. Someone asked, what are your best tips for not missing or delaying prayers?
Yeah, so when it comes to prayers, one of the interesting things that I share is that there's a mental blind spot we have called completion bias. And completion bias, I'm sure you felt this, is where you're working on something and then prayer time goes, I just want to complete this. I just want to get it off my disk, then I'll pray. The problem is, a lot of times that's one thing goes another thing, and the completion bias can hoax us. It's very addictive because we hate to have open loops, right? We think, let me just get this done and then I'll pray. If I don't get this done, I cannot pray. And so it's a bit of a mental block that we need to be aware of, not fall for. So say, okay, let's say in the middle of something and it's prayer time, you gotta all right, I'm gonna stop. And it's hard, it's very hard. It's actually quite painful because your brain hates it. You wanna give up. So that's from a mental perspective, to kind of just drop and kind of let go and give yourself the buffer. Another thing is to give yourself half an hour window. Say, okay, I know Salah starts let's say 1:30 p.m. From 1 o'clock, I'm gonna start winding down, right? So I'm gonna start finishing off anything that you do. So you're gonna give yourself that winding down window. So at least it's not you working to last minute and it's rushing off to pray, basically. Kind of get the winding down window as well. So those are two ideas. And then the third is to, again, recognize the barakah of Salah. Again, the power of Salah is that it is one of the most, if you want to talk about barakah, I mean, I can write a whole book on just on Salah and barakah, because Salah is a powerful, powerful source of barakah. Both in our lives, in our professional lives, in every aspect of life. So, and there's even scholars say that when you go pray early and pray on time, everything in your life comes early and on time. But when you delay prayers, everything in your life is delayed. And I've seen that personally in my own personal life, as well as in other people's lives. So just being very conscious of that. There's actually a saying by Imam Hassan al-Basri on that, inshallah. Any other questions?
Another question we have was, how can we incorporate barakah into helping with mental health or the poor uptake of counselling in the Muslim community?
The poor, sorry again, second part?
So how can we incorporate barakah into helping with mental health or with the poor uptake of counselling in the Muslim community? Some feel that therapy isn't Islamic.
Yeah, I mean that's a completely different topic there, but it's almost like that equation again. Back to that equation. I feel there are two extremes of that equation: free will, natural laws, and Allah's mission. Some people just focus on that Allah's mission part and they ignore the free will, natural laws. And this is one part of the community. Another part of the community focused on free will, natural laws, and they ignore the Allah's mission part. So it's almost like aligning them up, saying, yes, if you have facing mental health challenges and you're struggling, and let's say you're struggling with your marriage, struggling with your productivity, struggling with just functioning society. Yes, you can do this. Is important. Hold on to the things like prayers and salahs and tahajjud and fasting and Quran. Those are important, but take the steps, take the means, right? Free will, natural laws, right? Make the steps, align yourself, and not to say that takes away anything from your true tawakkul, right? We have this idea of tawakkul and having trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. it is linked, right, to taking certain means. Again, there's a whole debate in scholar tradition, like how much is your effort versus how much is straight from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our part is to be like the birds, right? We go out of our nest in the morning seeking God's help and counsel and rizq, and come back knowing Allah will provide for us. But we do our part versus, almost trying to say, no, I'm not going to do anything and expect miracles to happen to me, basically. And that's another whole point, inshallah. But it's a whole different discussion we can have as well. Question here, what is considered early that is mentioned in the hadith? So early, bukur is from before Fajr till sunrise. That's the bukur earlier, the early hours, right? From before Fajr, so maybe the tahajjud time, the last third of the night, all the way till sunrise. And that's because beyond sunrise is not considered early. That's the question. What is the one thing, I love this question from Adnan, what's one thing you've given up that helped you in Barakah Culture? Actually, giving up a to-do list. This might be like, what? Productivity guy, no to-do list? So now I don't have a to-do list, I have an intentions list. So every week, I will plan my intentions of the week, my niyyah for the week, and my daily intention, my niyyah for the day. And just that has been a mindset shift for me, because before I used to have a to-do list and get stressed out and to-do and hustle culture, and all that stuff. Now, so this is my niyyah for the week, not just in terms of work, my niyyah in terms of I want to be a better father this week. I want to be a better Muslim this week. I want to be a better husband this week, right? You put the intentions for the week about not just to do, but to be as well. And then every day I kind of revisit my weekly intentions, look at what my intention for the day. And the beautiful thing is, by the end of the day, if I achieve what I said to achieve, I said, alhamdulillah, not for me. If I don't achieve, I said, alhamdulillah, how can I revise and do better tomorrow? And it's been the biggest shift for me, moving Barakah Culture, from hustle culture to Barakah Culture, inshallah. Yes, we deliver all over the world, Shika. If you go to our store, you can deliver all over the world, inshallah. Any other question? Try to see. The Myers-Briggs test are great. I mean, I'd love to see, Fahim, that's a great question. I'd love to see, I feel this is still a very new field, this idea of spirituality and performance. So please, if you have experience, if you have research to contribute to this field, I would love, we need to create a body of knowledge, right? I'm just kind of exploring and sharing what I'm learning along the way, and you can join our newsletters. I share more insights via our newsletters, but we're hoping that this body of knowledge, test, whether it's personality tests, whether it's courses, whether it's workshops, we need to develop a body of knowledge because we feel like we are overwhelmed. Especially look at the self-help section. It's all about you can do it, and right? Very, very egocentric hustle culture drive versus being God-centric and hereafter focused. I feel it's a responsibility as a nation that has the last divine message to mankind to show a different way of living that is balanced versus being all over the place, inshallah. How are you doing for time? Should we carry on? I'm happy to keep going. Just let me know how are you for time. Oh, I think you're muted. I can't hear you.
Well, I think that wraps up most of our questions. And I have a message from the team to say that there is a lot of positive feedback in the chat box, a lot of hearts. So Jazakallah khair for a brilliant and informative talk. I know that I myself learned a lot. So thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who asked questions as well. So just a few things before we wrap up. If I can put the slides back on. Okay, so once again, Jazakallah khair, Brother Mohammed, for that fantastic talk. I think I particularly enjoyed the formulaic way in which you presented some of the lessons, and I think a lot of people who think in a scientific way will agree with that. Just as I mentioned, a couple of things to mention. If you enjoyed this webinar and you've participated in any of our other talks or events and you'd like to be a part of this global movement, then do please contact us about being a volunteer for BIMA. There are lots of teams available and we're always looking for enthusiastic and passionate volunteers. As I mentioned before, BIMA is a not-for-profit organisation, and we do rely on the efforts of our volunteers and donations as well. So if you would like to donate towards BIMA, then there are some links there, and I'll ask for the team to post the links in the chat, and we would really, really appreciate your support. So just before I get onto feedback form, some of you will know that we have applied for CPD accreditation for this talk, and we are still awaiting confirmation on that. So once we're given the go-ahead, then inshallah we can send through the CPD certificates. But everyone who's attended today will get a certificate of attendance. We just need, once you fill in the feedback form, inshallah, if you can fill in your name, and then we'll send you a certificate in due course. And as I mentioned, this recording will be going on YouTube, so keep an eye out for that as well, inshallah. So before I close, we have another webinar in the pipeline. With Ramadan coming, we will be doing a talk, inshallah, on the benefits of fasting on general health and with particular focus on the brain and neurological effects. So keep an eye out, please, on our social media for further information on that. And really all that's left for me to say is Jazakumullah khair again for your attendance and for your engagement, and Jazakallah khair to our speaker for another really, really fantastic talk. So thank you all. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.